I'm going to be speaking from Hebrews 12, 1 through 3 today. And if I had to title, it would be Running with a Purpose. So I'm going to read, and then we'll ask the Lord to bless the word and me as I deliver it. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your word. I just pray, Lord, that you would just use me as your vessel to deliver whatever we need today, God. That the Holy Spirit just guide me and just be my tongue, be my lips, God, to deliver your word. I pray, Lord, that we would just seek after you. I pray, God, that you would soften our hearts, that we would hear, God, your message, and that we would leave this place today not the same as we walked in, God, because you're perfect and you can do that, God. You can change us in 1 second. You can change our hearts, our minds, our spirits, the whole way we look at things, God. Only through you can that happen. And God, I just give you praise for who you are, and I give you all the glory for being able to stand in this spot right here today, God. And I just praise you and glorify you. Amen. And just also, just thank you so much for all your prayers for my mom. We really appreciate everything. It's been a tough time, and I was not even, that was one of the things I was referring to, is I was not even, I got a little bit of an echo, that I wasn't even going to preach today, and she insisted that I come and that I preach, and so you listen to your mama, right? So, yeah. So I'm going to kind of pick apart just a little bit the verse that we just read. And so it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. We are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And this is actually a figurative representation that we ought to act as if the faithful men and women of faith who have paved the way for us, who have already gone before us, were actually in sight and cheering us to the same victory that they've already obtained. Okay? So that the same people who have already been faithful to God and have gained their victory, we should be thinking and remembering that those people are cheering us on. There are cheerleaders per se. So that the people who pioneered this very church in this place where we are able to be today to worship God, that those people, Brother Stalls and Brother McKinley and Brother Cox, those people who started and had such a great impact on the place that we are standing right now, that they are actually cheering us on as we are running the race for God, right? And I like to think that my grandfather and my grandmothers who spent their lives dedicating their life to following Christ were cheering me on every step of the way. I would like to think that whenever I endure something that seems impossible, whenever I go up against something that just seems too much, that they are in the grandstands and they are saying, Kelly, you've got this. Kelly, you can do this. And I know you can. I like to think that they are cheering me on. And I would like, and I know Pastor and is probably thinking, I know that Kenneth, he probably thinks sometimes that he's saying, well done, son. I am proud of you and you can do this. Do not lose heart. And sometimes it might be when you're doing something great, right? When you are in God's will and you are listening to God and you are on the highest mountain, it might be that they're saying, awesome, good job, I'm so proud of you, son. I am so proud of you, daughter. And then it might be in the lowest valleys that they're saying, I know that this is hard. I've been there. You can do it too, right? And so we have to think about that the people, it says we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. And what's really interesting is that the Greek word nephos, which is cloud, depicts the highest seats in a sports stadium. So this is a powerful image because it reminds us that our walk of faith removes us from spectator positions. It puts us down in the arena. See, it says that they have a cloud of witnesses, which means that they are up in the highest grandstands. If you think of any kind of stadium that you've been in, or maybe you've seen Rupp Arena on TV, or a concert, or whatever it might be, you've got all these, you can stand here and just look up, and there's just a cloud of people. They're just all around in the highest stadiums, right? And so that's what the Greek word means, is that it's the highest, the highest seats in the sports arena, and that you are not in the spectator spot. You are in the arena. You are in the production. It is for you. You are fighting the fight. You are in the middle of the battle, right? And so it says that you're surrounded by the witnesses, and that means that we are more than just spectators. We are more than just watching what is happening, right? It is a great reminder also that we're not alone, right? That others have finished the race, and they also had trials, and they also had difficulties, but they made it. They are the witnesses who cheered us on, and they made it. So just as we are in the middle of a battle, just as we are in the middle of a circumstance, all we need to do is look up to the great cloud of witnesses and all the people that are cheering us on. You are being supported by bleachers and bleachers and bleachers of people cheering you on, knowing that you can endure, you can continue the race. And like I said, if you've ever been to a sports arena or anything of the sort, you know how intense it can be. Thad and I went to a UK game a few weeks ago, and if you've ever been there, it's intense. Yeah, they're not playing around. And, but we were a few rows up and back. There was it was a pretty good section of the opponent's team. And we were down by a little bit, and they were on it. They got their little crowd cheering and chanting, for the other team. Well, it took like one cheer, and Rupp Arena's like, no. Right? And so then, the olive Big Blue Nation just began, go Big Blue. Well, it was no time before that small section, who were also very passionate about their team, they were completely drowned out. No one could hear their voices anymore, because everybody else in the arena was for the home team. And they were screaming and they were yelling so loud and cheering so loud that no one even knew that the opponent was there. No one even knew that the opponent was saying anything, because it had been deafened. It had been deafened by all the crowd, by the people hollering and yelling to that team. And so many times we need the voice of the enemy to be deafened. We need it to be silenced. So many times we need to remember that we need to listen to the cheers. We need to listen to the cloud of witnesses. We need to listen to all the people who paved the way before us and say, we can do it. We can do it. And as soon as the crowd went wild, right, Big Blue Nation, the boys started rallying, right? They started making, and then of course they're doing all their things that they do to the audience and all that fun stuff, right? To show them that we hear you. We hear you. And we're fighting our fight, and we're doing our very best. And that's what we need to remember, is that we need to hear the cloud of witnesses. We need to hear all the people around us that are cheering us on, and let the lies of the enemy and everything else just be deafened. Deafened, that we hear nothing but the faithful people who've gone in before us cheering us on. And this is what we have to think about as we begin to fight against the enemy, in the difficult circumstances, we have to think about the cloud of witnesses that's cheering us on, and this is proof to us that we too can do it, right? We can do it. And so the word says, therefore we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and so we need to be deaf to all the lies of the enemy and listening to all the people that have gone on before us, that are cheering us on, that they know that we can make it because they endured too through with the strength of Jesus Christ, right? And the word also says, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Let us run, and perseverance means with a continued effort to do something despite the difficulty. That's what perseverance means. That you continue to do something despite the difficulty. So if you put those words in instead of perseverance, so let us run with perseverance, the race marked out for us, it would read, let us run with a continued effort to do something despite the difficulty, right? Let us continue to run despite the difficulty. And also, not only that, but it says that we should with the race marked out for us. So we have a certain path. We have a certain will for our lives. We're not just running the race, and we're not just running with perseverance, but we are called to run a certain path. We're called to run the race that has been marked out for us, that has been laid for us, that is there and ready. See, when runners run, there's a course that they run. I don't know how many of you ever run like a marathon or a race or something. I don't. Okay, I've heard about it. If you ever have, there's a path marked out for you. There's a course that here's where you start, and then they give you a map of where you end up. And so the race is clearly marked, and they'll mark flags and posts and different things so you don't get lost. And so that's what happens. And so we are running a race. And we're running it with perseverance, which means that we are doing it despite the difficulty, because we know that there is difficulty, right? And so we're doing that, but not only are we running the race, and not only are we running with perseverance, we are running a specific race that has been laid out for us, right? We're not just willy-nilly running around. Runners don't just get in a race and, I think I'll run this path. I think I'll run over here, and then I'll finish when I finish. No, they have a clearly marked path. See, we have a clearly marked path for our lives. And my race and my markers that I'm going through might be completely different from yours. Your race is your own personal path that God has set out for you. Where are you running? What are you doing, right? And so it says we have a certain path that we are called to walk to run. And running, and it clearly says, let us run. And I looked up a lot of translations for this verse, okay? And they all say run. That's right. They all do. Okay? They don't say walk, and they don't say jog, and they don't say gallop or skip. They all say run. They all say run. And I'm going to tell you real quick, I don't like running. Okay? I am not a fan. Even when I was, and I've been exercising regularly, but even when I exercise regularly and I'm on like a nice, healthy exercise regimen, I promise you, running is not part of it. I'm just not a fan. It's literally awful. When I was in elementary school, like every year they had that thing where you have to run the miles and then chart your time, and then you try to improve your time. And I'm telling you something. I was always a people pleaser. I always excelled in school. If you told me to do something, I was going to do it. But I hated that more than anything in the world. I really felt like it was like a crime. I thought, should they really make young people do this? But anyway, that's completely different. But we actually we sponsor a run at school. It's called Run for DC, and it helps pay the cost for our DC trip. And people actually sign up to run. like to do it for fun. And like they choose to do it, which I just think, okay. They actually do it. But anyway, there are avid runners, right? There are people who run. But what I want to talk about is that the word says run, but running takes more effort than the other. Okay, so running takes more effort than walking. And running takes more effort than skipping. And running takes more effort than galloping. See, running takes more effort than those things. Running shows a sense of urgency. All right? When someone is in need of something quickly, they run. That's what they do. And when you miss the bus, you run. When you need to catch someone real quick, you run. Okay, so if you need something in a hurry, or if there's something urgent, or if there's something that is a priority, you run, right? If someone calls you and there's an emergency or something, you don't lollygag around. You don't, okay, I'll be there in a minute. Right? We're running, right? We're running because it shows a sense of priority. So the word doesn't say that we should walk with determination for the race, and the word doesn't say that we should jog with perseverance, and the word doesn't say that we should do any of those things. The word, in many translations, like I said, the word says that we should be running with perseverance, with determination, despite the difficulty. So we should be running in the race despite any difficulty. And there's a few things that we should note about running, because since the word it focuses on run, and it's the same in so many translations, and I don't know if you know this or not, but most of the time when you look up a verse and you start looking up translations, there's a whole lot of words that they use, and so it's very few times that you look up something that you see the same word for every one. So clearly, run was important. And let me tell you about it. If you want to be a good runner, you're going to have to train. And then over time, it begins to strengthen your heart. Okay? You have to practice, and typically, you don't just start to run and go do a marathon without any training. Like, it's not happening. You have to prepare. So otherwise, if you decide that you're going to go run a marathon, and you had no training or no practice, then eventually you're going to end up with shin splints and then that horrible pain in your side, which, that horrible, or you become short of breath because your body is not prepared. So if you do not train your body, it is going to be difficult to finish the race. It's going to be difficult. So in order to run the race, in order to complete the marked path, because it says a marked path, right? In order to complete the marked path that God has for us, we have to prepare our hearts. Our hearts need conditioning, and our hearts need to be prepared. And one way that we prepare our hearts is that we make room. We make room. We have to get rid of the junk, and we have to make room for Jesus.
Amen.
That's what this season is about. It should be about it all year long. But right now, this season is magnified that we are making room. Making room for Jesus with all the other stuff going on that Christmas has become about, right? That we're making room for Jesus because that's what it's really all about. Anytime you want to get rid of something or add something to your room or home or whatever it might be, many times, or clothes or whatever it is, many times you'll do a clean out and you'll just get rid of all the old. And you're doing that to declutter, right? You get rid of it so you can make room for the new. You buy a new sofa, you get rid of the old one, right? So you're making room for the new. And lots of times you'll trash anything that you don't need. And this allows you to have room for the new item, whatever you've got. We have to do that with our hearts. We need to prepare our hearts and clean out all the junk that doesn't go there. And prepare our hearts and get it ready for Jesus. Prepare it and have room for Jesus. And when runners begin to train for marathons or long races, they do have to prepare and they have to get ready. And not only do they need to train and condition, but they also have I mean, they have to make time to do it, right? You're not just going to become this marathon runner overnight, right? It takes time. We have to get rid of the junk and we have to get rid of the sin in our lives, but we also have to make time to spend with Him. Our hearts will not be changed on our own, right? Our hearts are only going to be changed with our Heavenly Father. And that happens with reading His Word and praying and praising Him daily to strengthen our hearts. When we're spending time with God, and we're spending time in the Word, and we're spending time just praising Him, it's conditioning our heart for the battle. Because if you go back to the beginning of the verse, we're not spectators. We're in the middle of a battle. And so in order to run the race, and in order to endure in the battle, our hearts have to be prepared, right? And our hearts have to be conditioned and ready to run. The Word says in John 16:33, it says, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world. We are in a battle, we will endure tribulation, and our hearts have to be prepared. They have to be conditioned and ready. The Bronson Health Institute says that over time, running strengthens the walls of your heart, which increases its overall efficiency. It says running minimizes the heart's workload, and because runners have stronger hearts, they typically have a lower resting pulse rate, and they intake higher levels of oxygen. So in short, running makes your heart stronger, and it makes the heart not have to work as hard. Running makes the heart stronger, and it doesn't have to work as hard. So as we run the Christian race, with our eyes fixated on Jesus, we actually have to work less. The workload becomes His, not ours. So we're able to run the race. We're able to endure because it's His load and not ours. As runners' hearts have to work less. If I'm a Christ follower and I am in tune to Him and He is a part of me, then I have to work less. It's through Him that I can endure. It's not anything on my own. And the race is not going to be easy. It says you will endure tribulation. And the race is not just a day, many times. It's not just a day. It's day after day after day. But with God, we were able to finish the race. Which you just said earlier. So with God, we're able to finish the race. And in my darkest days, when I was weary and I didn't feel like I could carry on, when I'm so tired, I'm so weak, I'm so done, physically, emotionally, whatever it is in our lives, it's then, God, that our strength comes from God. We have to make room for Him. We have to allow Him to be our strength. We have to allow Him to come into our hearts and to work for us so we can finish the race. I promise you right now that the week that I've had, there's no way that Kelly Baker would be here. It's only through the grace of God and His strength and His grace and His mercy. See, my heart's conditioned. My heart's conditioned. And I'm letting God take control. And that's what we have to do. Runners also don't just run blindly. Like I said, they have a clearly marked path. And we have to keep our hearts and our eyes on Jesus to finish. And and we're running a race with our eyes on Jesus. And the Word says, I'm sorry. It's about finishing the race. You can't, it's a day by day by day process. You can't start really strong and then just fail at the end. Like, that's not the way that it works. You don't get to start the race. I mean, and these people many times are running because they're healthy and things, but also when they're in these marathons and things like that, they're running because they want to place, right? They want to do well. They want to improve their time and stuff like that. Well, you can't start out doing really, really well and then get halfway through the race and be ahead of everybody else in the race and then just sit on the side of the road and be like, yeah, I'm going to take a rest for a little bit. That's not the way that it works. Eventually, you're either not going to finish or everybody else is going to start to pass you up, right? I tell my kids at school all the time, I'm like, you can't start strong and then just give up. Like, you've got to endure. You've got to keep going. And so even though when you start off, I know many times when you start off running, and I've heard this because like I said, I don't run. When you start off running, you're full of energy, right? At the beginning of the race, I mean, maybe you've slept well and you're ready to go and you start the race and you're like, okay, I've got this. But then about midway through, or even a quarter way through, you get the shin splint, right? Or you get the side, the pain in your side, or whatever it might be. But along the way, there might be something that comes up that is hindering you from running. But when that happens, you can't just sit down on the side of the road. See, it says that we will have tribulation. We're not going to start the race and the whole time just run and everything be great and everything be dandy and feel good the whole time and just breathing nicely and all of those things. There's going to be time that trials and tribulations and problems and all those things are going to come our way, but we have to keep running the race. We have to let God step in and be our strength and keep running the race. And the Word says that let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. So we're supposed to throw off everything that creates difficulty. That's the definition of hinder, is anything that creates difficulty. And so anything and all the sin, anything that takes us away from God, we're supposed to throw off when we endure the race. The Word says we're surrounded by the cloud of witnesses that are cheering us on, and then let us throw off anything that is keeping us from running, throw it away. And the sin that entangles us, throw it away. That's what the Word says. And when runners get ready to run, they have to get into the proper attire. They have running shoes, and they have different shorts, and they have different pants. And sometimes they'll pay really high dollar prices for these items because they want to be more successful when they're running. And they want to be comfortable. They're not going to run in these heavy, stiff pieces of clothing. And good runners even know what materials and what gear helps them be successful to run the race. They know what slows them down, and they know what helps them to do their best while they're running. And the Word says that we should run the race with our eyes fixed on Jesus, and that we should throw off anything that's hindering us. So what is hindering us from running our race with courage and boldness that He told us that we are set out to do? So what in my life is hindering me that I need to throw off? Is it sin? Is it bitterness? Is it unforgiveness? Is it a bad attitude? What is keeping me from running the best race that I can? And what does my Christian run look like? Am I being dragged down with baggage? Am I being dragged down with fears? Am I being dragged down with discouragement? Or am I in my gear, ready to go to lead people to Christ? Right? So the runners, as they take off, and there just happens to be a line here, which is so great. So as they take off for the race, like I said in the beginning, you might be, okay, I can do this, right? But if you have on the wrong garments, if you don't have on the proper attire for running, like I was saying, if you have on this thick material, runners know what to run in because they are experienced. We need to be experienced in Christ. We need to look back and say, this is my experience with God. He has been there, and His fingerprints have been a part of every single thing in my life. I can tell you right now, every single trial, every single thing that has ever gone wrong in my life, I can pinpoint the fingerprints of God right there. Right in there. Right in there. I see you. Right in there. It was a horrible experience. We're all sitting even said, wow, he was a different nationality doctor, and he even asked me what home was, and we were referring to heaven, and he said, I have not seen a family this way in so many years, at peace, and just, he said it was remarkable. And I said, it's because of Jesus. It's because of Jesus. So when we're running the race and things get heavy, right? And we get about midway through and we get that cramp or we get the shin splints or whatever it might be, there's a certain attire, right, that you should be wearing. We need to be prepared. We need to let God prepare our hearts and prepare us as we run the race. We need to know exactly what God will tell us, exactly what to do. It's easy to get bogged down by life and it gets heavy, but He will be there.
Amen.
And not only do racers wear the proper attire and they're going to throw off any of those garments, they often have to refuel and they even stop at hydration stations. Most running events have hydration stations because they need to refuel. They need that water in their bodies. And in our spiritual lives, we need to make sure that we stay hydrated with the living water.
Yes.
The Word says in John 7:37-38, on the last and greatest day of the festival, Jesus stood and said in a loud voice, "Let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow within them." Christ is our strength. He's our living water. And He's our hydration station. Just as runners need to stay hydrated and replenish their water supply, we need to allow the living water to keep us replenished and refreshed. You will grow weary and you'll grow tired without the Holy Spirit to lead you and guide you. And will become depleted if we aren't spiritually fed with the living water in the Word. There's so many races that runners end up fainting or passing out because they're not hydrated, because they haven't taken care of their bodies. We need to take care of our hearts. And we need to be in tune and be drinking the living water, right? Have Christ be a part of our lives. He endured this cross and scorning its shame and sat down on the right hand of the throne. Consider Him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and you will not lose heart. He endured the cross so we would not grow weary and we would not lose heart. And it's tough. There are days that we feel weary, but our strength comes from the Lord, right? And like I said, I know that this sermon wasn't per se a Christmas sermon, but as we celebrate Christmas because God sent Jesus to be born, so He could die for our sins, so He didn't have to grow weary, and that we could face the battles with Him, so that we're standing in the arena, and all the clouds of witnesses are around us, and they're cheering us on. We know that the battle has already been won. We're already victorious. We're already victorious. We can be strong and we can be courageous in all things, in all circumstances, because He was born in a dirty manger. And He died a horrific death for each and every one of us.
Hallelujah. Amen.
If you'll bow your heads with me.